How many times have you lit a candle to Santa Rita asking for a miracle, and all that came was silence? Or worse, after that candle, it seems that things started to withdraw. Fights at home, sensation of weight in the environment, anguish without explanation. I know. You did it with faith, did it with love. He put his intention there, from his heart. But let me tell you something that almost no one says. Lighting a candle is a sacred gesture, and also dangerous when done without preparation. I tell you this because I've seen a lot of people despair thinking they were doing everything right, and unintentionally opened a spiritual breach. Saint Rita is powerful, interceded by impossible causes, but she also asks for respect. And it has an essential detail that should be done before lighting any candle for it. And it was only when I found out that my life began to change. The protection came. The doors began to open. That feeling of abandonment and weight left. In this video, I will show you exactly what needs to be done before lighting the candle, and why this is so crucial not to take spiritual risks. It's simple, but it transforms everything. If you feel that your prayers are not being heard, if you light up and it seems that nothing changes, or if you want to learn to connect with Santa Rita the right way, stay with me until the end. Because perhaps what is missing in your life is not faith, it is spiritual direction. And if you feel that this kind of guidance makes sense to your spiritual walk, you already subscribe here to the channel and write in the comments from which city you are watching. Here I share powerful prayers, sacred teachings, and spiritual care that few people tell you, but make all the difference. Activates the bell not to lose any content that can change your life. I want to talk about Maria, a devoted woman from Brazil who contacted me last year. She had been lighting candles to Santa Rita every week for months, asking for help for her troubled marriage. But instead of finding peace, his house became increasingly chaotic. Her husband became farther away, her children became restless and quarrelsome, and she herself was exhausted and anxious after each candling session. What Maria didn't realize was that she was making a critical mistake that was actually blocking her prayers and potentially inviting negative energies to her sacred space. This is not an isolated case. I received numerous messages from people who went through similar situations after lighting candles without proper preparation. The truth is that lighting a candle to any saint, especially for someone as powerful as Saint Rita, is not simply a casual act of devotion. It is a deep spiritual opening, a bridge between our physical world and the divine kingdom. And like any bridge, it must be crossed with reverence, preparation, and understanding. Today, I will reveal the essential steps you should follow before lighting up this candle, steps that most people completely ignore, but can make a difference between receiving blessings and, inadvertently, creating a spiritual imbalance in your life. At the end of this video, you will understand not only why these preparations are crucial, but just like doing them to ensure that your devotion comes to Santa Rita in the most powerful and protected way as possible. Let me start by sharing who Santa Rita really was, because understanding your extraordinary life will help you understand why you approach it requires so much reverence and care. Born in the small Italian town of Cassia in the 14th century, Rita lived experiences that would break the mood of most people. She endured an abusive marriage with a violent man, saw her 2 children die young people, and faced rejection even when she tried to join religious life. The nuns initially refused their entry into the convent 3 times as a widow, not a virgin. But this is what makes Santa Rita so remarkable and so powerful in the spiritual scope. Despite every tragedy, every rejection of every moment of despair, she never lost faith. It transformed its suffering into a deep connection with the divine that became legendary. When he finally entered the convent, he had mystical views and even received the stigmas, carrying Christ's wounds on his forehead. He became known to make the impossible possible, to intercede in situations where all hope seemed lost. The Catholic Church canonized her officially in 1900, but the people already recognized her miraculous power centuries earlier. They called it the Saint of the Impossible, holy of desperate cases, lawyer of the desperate. It is not just poetic language. The spiritual authority of Santa Rita comes from having walked through the valley of deeper and emerged suffering with an unshakable connection with divine grace. When you understand this context, it begins to understand why lighting a candle to Santa Rita is not like lighting any common candle. You are not just making a simple request. You are trying to connect with a soul that has achieved extraordinary spiritual elevation through unimaginable trials. It exists in a kingdom of immense spiritual power, and accessing it requires respect, preparation, and a proper spiritual protocol. This leads us to understand what a candle really represents in spiritual practice. Most people think of candles like decorative objects or simple tools to create atmosphere. But in spiritual traditions that cover thousands of years in countless cultures, the candle serves much more than enlightenment. It is a driver between worlds, a lighthouse that signals its intention to the spiritual kingdom, and most importantly, an opening of energy that can flow in both directions. The flame itself represents the divine spark, the light of consciousness that connects us to the upper kingdoms. When you light a candle with spiritual intention, you are creating what experienced practitioners call the spiritual portal. Light attracts the attention of spiritual beings, both positive and negative. Heat creates an energetic path. Smoke transports your prayers and intentions up, while also potentially attracts spiritual influences down to your space. Ancient spiritual masters profoundly understood this principle. They knew that any opening to the spiritual kingdom must be approached with proper preparation and protection. In Jewish tradition, lighting the Shabbat candles involves specific prayers and times. In Buddhist practice, offering candles to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas requires purification rituals. In indigenous traditions around the world, fire ceremonies begin with elaborate cleaning protocols and blessings. The same principle applies to light candles to Christian saints. You are not just doing a physical gesture. You are opening a channel between your earthly space and the kingdom where Santa Rita dwells. And just as you wouldn't leave the front door wide in a dangerous neighborhood, you should not open spiritual channels without proper precautions and preparations. Now, let me reveal the common mistake that creates spiritual risk, the mistake that Mary and countless other people have made unknowingly. Most people address candle lights with what I call casual spirituality. They take a candle from the store, turn it on quickly as they mentally formulate their request, and assume that their sincere intention is sufficient. They treat this how to make a telephone call, where you simply dial the number and start talking. But spiritual communication does not work that way. When you turn on a candle without proper preparation, a lot of dangerous things can happen. First, you can connect with spiritual entities that disguise you as the saint you are looking for. Not all spiritual beings have good intentions, and some actively seek to deceive and harm people who approach the spiritual kingdom carelessly. Secondly, you can create what spiritual practitioners call energy confusion. His unprepared state sends confusing signs to the spiritual kingdom. Instead of communicating clearly with Santa Rita, its energy can spread in various directions, attracting various spiritual influences that do not serve its greater good. This is why people often feel exhausted or experience strange events after lighting casually candles. Third, and perhaps most importantly, you can inadvertently disrespect Santa Rita herself. Remember that she has achieved her spiritual status through incredible devotion, suffering, and purification. Approaching it without similar preparation can be seen as spiritual presumption. It is like invading the office of someone extremely important without marked time. Proper costume or understanding of the protocol. I've seen people experience what I call spiritual reaction because of this error. Their problems actually intensify after losing candles incorrectly. Your homes are full of tension and discord. They feel spiritually exhausted instead of high. Some even report nightmares or the feeling of being observed. These are not coincidences. They are natural consequences of opening spiritual doors without proper preparation and protection. Let me share another example that illustrates this point powerfully. Carlos, a Mexican entrepreneur, began to light candles to Santa Rita during a financial crisis. But instead of following any spiritual protocol, he lit them in a hurry between meetings, often annoyed or frustrated with the situation. Your business problems have not improved. In fact, they got worse. His employees began to resign unexpectedly. Suppliers have created problems that never existed before, and even their family relationships were tense. It was only when Carlos learned to approach Santa Rita with the proper reverence and preparation that his situation began to change. He realized that his hurry and emotionally chaotic approach was creating a spiritual static that prevented his prayers from coming to the intended destination. After he corrected his approach, his business not only recovered, but also flourished beyond his original expectations. So, what should you do before lighting a candle to Santa Rita? The preparation process involves 4 essential elements that create spiritual clarity, protection, and proper respect. These are not superstitious rituals. These are practical steps that align your energy with the sacred nature of what you are trying to accomplish. The first essential element is personal purification. This does not mean that you need to submit to elaborate ceremonies or spend hours preparing. But you need to purify yourself energetically before trying to communicate with such a high spiritual being. Take a bath of shower or bathtub with the conscious intention of washing not only physical dirt, but also negative thoughts, anger, resentment, and spiritual impurities that can obscure your connection. During the shower, speak silently or out loud to release any feelings that do not serve your greater good. Ask for forgiveness for any mistakes you have made, and extend the forgiveness to those who have harmed you. Santa Rita, having supported an abusive marriage, responds particularly to those who choose forgiveness instead of bitterness. This purification process signals the spiritual kingdom that you approach with clean hands and pure heart. After showering, seem clean and modest clothes. You don't need special religious clothing, but avoid overly revealing clothes or carrying negative associations for you. Choose colors that convey peace and respect. Many people prefer white or light blue when connecting with Santa Rita, as these colors symbolize divine purity and grace. The second essential element is the preparation of the environment. The place where you light your candle is extremely important. It must be a clean and quiet place where you are not interrupted or distracted. Remove any objects that carry negative energies or associations. Clean the disorder, dust, and anything that creates visual or mental chaos. Create what I call a sacred corner. It doesn't have to be anything very elaborate. A small table or shelf where you can put your candle, perhaps next to an image of Santa Rita, if you have one, and possibly a glass of fresh water. Water serves multiple purposes. It represents purity and life, helps absorb negative energies, and provides what many traditions consider essential to spiritual communication. Some people like to add fresh flowers, especially roses, which are associated with Santa Rita. Others include a small crucifix or religious medal. The key is intentionality. Each object in its sacred space must be there for a specific spiritual reason, not only because it seems beautiful or available. The third essential element is mental and emotional preparation. Before you even touch the candle, spend several minutes in silent reflection or meditation. Breathe deeply and slowly, allowing your mind to calm down and your emotions to stabilize. If you are feeling angry, desperately, or emotionally chaotic, postpone the candlelight until you can approach it from a place of inner peace. This is crucial because your emotional state at the time of lighting determines the quality of the spiritual connection you will establish. Santa Rita herself reached her miraculous power through inner peace, despite the external turbulence. She found serenity in the midst of chaos, forgiveness in the face of abuse, hope in the depths of despair. By approaching it from a similar state of inner balance, you create resonance with your spiritual frequency. During this preparation time, clearly reflect on your intention. What exactly are you asking Santa Rita to help you? Be specific, but also be willing to accept that her response may come in unexpected ways. Remember, she is the saint of impossible things, which sometimes means that the solution appears in ways you never imagined. The fourth essential element is spiritual protection. Before you open any connection with the spiritual kingdom, you need to set boundaries and protection for yourself and your space. This is not fear. It is wisdom and respect for the powerful forces you are working with. Start with a simple but sincere prayer, asking for divine protection. You can say something like, "Divine Father, Divine Mother, please involve me with her white light of protection. Remove any energies or influences that do not serve my greatest good. That only love, light, and divine grace enter this sacred space." You can also invoke your guardian angel, asking for your presence and protection during your moment of prayer. Many spiritual traditions recognize that we all have divine protectors assigned to us, and they are always ready to help when we sincerely ask. Some people like to visualize the white light around them and their sacred space. Others prefer to make the sign of the cross or recite the Our Father. The specific method matters less than its sincere intention to create a protected environment for spiritual communication. Now you are ready for the candle-lit ritual. But even that should be done with proper reverence and technique. Do not use any candle. Choose one specifically designated for spiritual purposes. White candles work wonderfully because they represent purity and divine light. Red candles connect with Saint Rita's passion and determination. Some people prefer rose candles, associating them with roses, which are the symbol of Saint Rita. The size of the candle is not as important as its quality and its intention to choose it. However, avoid candles with strong artificial fragrances that can interfere with the spiritual atmosphere you are creating. Simple, perfume candles usually work better for this purpose. Before lighting the candle, hold it in your hands for a moment. Silently, dedicate her to her communication with Saint Rita. You can say, "Saint Rita, I offer this light as a symbol of my devotion and respect. Please accept my prayers and petitions with the love and faith with which I offer them." By lighting the candle, do it slowly and consciously. Observe the flame firm and establish yourself. This moment represents the opening of your spiritual communication channel. As you call it, talk to Saint Rita how she would talk to a wise and compassionate friend who cares about her interests. Share your situation honestly, but also express gratitude for your intercession. Thank her for any help she is already offering her, even if you still can't see it. Ask not only what you want, but the wisdom to accept any results that serve your highest spiritual good. Candle lighting time also matters. Many people think that early in the morning or night create better spiritual connections, perhaps because these transition moments open us naturally to different states of consciousness. Choose a time when you can stay quiet for at least 15 to 20 minutes. As the candle burns, remain present and attentive. This is not the time for multitasking or to let your mind ramble. You have opened a sacred space and must honor it with all your attention. You can pray the third, read spiritual texts, or simply sit in silent communion with the presence of Saint Rita. Pay attention to any thoughts, feelings, or impressions that arise as the candle burns. Saint Rita can communicate through sudden insights, feelings of peace, or even symbolic images that come to mind. Do not expect dramatic supernatural manifestations. Divine communication is generally through subtle manifestations, kind means that require spiritual sensitivity to be recognized. When you are ready to complete your moment of prayer, do not delete the candle casually. Thank Saint Rita for your time and attention. Express gratitude for any blessings and guidelines it is offering you. You can say, "Thank you, dear Saint Rita, for hearing my prayers and for your constant intercession. I trust your wisdom and love." Some people prefer to let the candle burn completely as a sign of total dedication. Others consciously erase her, planning to rekindle her to continue prayer for several days or weeks. Both approaches can be spiritually appropriate, depending on their intention and circumstances. After erasing the candle, spend a few moments in gratitude and reflection. Note how you feel compared to when it started. Many people experience a sense of peace, lightness, or spiritual renewal when they connect properly with the energy of Saint Rita. In the days following the lighting of the candle, remain alert to the signs of the intercession of Saint Rita. These may not seem like dramatic miracles. Often, your help comes through open doors, helpful people who appear at the right time, sudden insights about solutions to their problems, or an inner force to deal with difficulties with more grace and wisdom. Remember that Saint Rita's specialty are impossible situations, but your timeline may not meet your expectations. She sees the broader spiritual panorama you may not be able to notice. Trust your wisdom and timing, even when circumstances don't change as quickly as you expected. Some people develop a continuous relationship with Saint Rita through regular candlelight, creating a spiritual partnership that deepens over time. If you choose this path, Keep the same reverence and preparation on all occasions. Never let familiarity generate carelessness in your spiritual practice. I want to emphasize that these preparations are not onerous requirements designed to hinder spiritual communication. They are gifts that improve your spiritual experience and protect you from potential problems. When you approach Santa Rita with proper preparation, you are likely to feel a deeper connection, receive clearer guidance, and experience deeper spiritual growth. People who skip these steps are not necessarily bad or spiritually inferior, they simply do not understand the spiritual principles involved. But now that you know more, you have the opportunity to get closer to this powerful saint with the respect and preparation it deserves. Maria, the woman I mentioned at the beginning, completely transformed her experience by learning these principles. Instead of the chaos and spiritual confusion it had been experiencing, their candlelight sessions became moments of profound peace and spiritual renewal. Her wedding has not healed overnight, but she received inner strength and wisdom to deal with the situation with grace. Eventually, her husband began to change in response to her transformed energy, and their relationship found a new way to healing. Carlos also found that proper preparation made all the difference in his spiritual communication with Santa Rita. His business not only recovered, but expanded in ways he never imagined being possible. Most importantly, he developed a lasting spiritual relationship that continues to guide and bless his life years later. These are not exceptional cases. They represent what becomes possible when we approach spiritual communication with adequate understanding and preparation. Saint Rita also expects to help you, but she deserves your respect, your preparation, and your sincere devotion. Before lighting your next candle to Santa Rita, remember what you learned today. Set aside time to purify yourself, prepare your space, establish spiritual protection, and approach it with the reverence due to someone who has achieved such spiritual elevation through amazing trials. Your prayers are important, your devotion is important, and Santa Rita, the saint of the impossible, is ready to intercede for you when you approach it with proper preparation and sincere faith. May she hear her prayers, bless her life with her miraculous power, and guide him in any impossible situation she is facing the same grace and strength that guided her in her own trials. Remember to share this knowledge with others who light candles in your spiritual practice. Many people unknowingly make the mistakes we discussed today, and you can help them discover the correct way to connect with the powerful intercession of Santa Rita. Together we can guarantee that this beautiful spiritual tradition continues with the respect and understanding it deserves.